restless. I am so restless. And this changing world leaves me speechless. I am lost for words, but I kept my nerve.
Welcome to The Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. I wanted to talk about the importance of Judeo-Christian unity in America. So I have with me Rabbi David Wolpe, Senior Rabbi of Sinai Temple in Los Angeles. He was named the most influential rabbi in America by Newsweek Magazine. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Are you called by God to be a rabbi, or how does one become a rabbi?
Well, it depends on the individual. I mean, some people feel like they were called by God, but the way that you become a rabbi is essentially through a course of study. So I went to what's called after college, I went to the American Jewish University here in Los Angeles for 2 years, studied in Israel for a year, and finished in New York for 2 more years. So it was 5 years after college.
What made you decide to become a rabbi? Because that's like being a preacher to a Christian, right?
It is. The easiest answer to that is my father was a rabbi.
Oh, I see.
So I came by it honestly. But there were a lot of other factors that went into it. I think if you want to do, as I do, if you want to dedicate your life to not only God, but the Jewish people and Jewish history and the message that Judaism has to give to the world, it's a sort of natural evolution from there to become a rabbi. And also, I like what a rabbi does.
What does he do?
He marries people. He gets to be the person at funerals who can sum up someone's life to the family. You get to bar and bat mitzvah people. You get to be there when they're born. You get to give sermons that people are supposed to listen to. I write, I travel around and I speak. I write books, I write columns for different magazines and newspapers, and all of that is part of my function as a rabbi.
But you also have to live a certain way, right? In that you can't have more than one woman, You can't party and smoke, you can't head out late at night.
Well, it also depends where on the religious spectrum you are. So, for example, if you're more traditional, you keep kosher, which I do, you keep the Sabbath, which I do, but you just have to decide whether that's the way that you want to live. And if that's the way you want to live, so a rabbi is a very good expression of it.
Do you live that way?
I do most of the time. I won't say that I'm perfect, but yeah.
What's imperfect about you?
I'm tempted to say everything. I can't think of anything about me that's perfect. So my moral resolve, my intellectual breadth, my fidelity to my tradition and God, my relationships with other human beings, they're all imperfect.
So, as the result of becoming a rabbi, you had to have total faith in God, right?
No.
Oh, you don't have to have faith in God.
No, I did. You said total.
Yeah, total.
I don't know. I'm not
faith,
sure.
not total.
I'm not sure what total faith in God would mean.
Oh, okay.
I would say that it's not. The reason I said it the way I did is, you can have doubts, you can struggle with it, you can wonder, and still be a rabbi.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
But not totally.
No. Well, it depends again what totally means. If you say to me, do I ever have doubts or struggle? Yes, I have both.
Yeah, total means no doubt.
No, I don't. I don't think that the best way to believe in God is to have no doubt.
Really?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because I think that any faith, when it struggles, becomes stronger and should have a dark side as well as a bright side.
Even after your faith is now in God?
Right, even after, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you married?
Have been.
You have? How many times?
I'm not now. I have one child.
You've been married
I've
once?
married once, yes. I have one
And so
child.
what happened?
Didn't work in the end.
She left you?
No. Well, no. No, we mutually agreed. We're actually very close. I have the best divorce in history. We talk every day. We're very close, but in the end, the marriage didn't work.
Were you a rabbi at the time when
Oh yeah.
when you got married and you divorced?
Yep.
And are you able, without being too personal, are you able to tell us how it's possible for a rabbi to end a divorce?
Well, Jewish law permits divorce.
Oh, it does?
Oh yeah.
Does it have to be a cause for it? I mean, like someone have to cheat or?
Not necessarily, no. Not in Jewish law. In Jewish law, if you decide to get divorced, you can get divorced.
But the law of
It's
God.
based on the Bible. No, it's based on the Old Testament. It's in Deuteronomy. If a man, what we call the Hebrew Bible, but you call the Old Testament.
Right.
If a man writes his wife for writ of divorce, it's right there in the Bible.
So did you just wake up one day and realize, you know what, I'm tired of this one?
No, not at all. It was a long evolution and an agreement between the two of us.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Will you ever marry again?
Don't know. We'll see.
Would you like to marry again?
We'll see.
How long were you married to this woman you broke up with?
17 and a half years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, was it a difficult divorce?
No.
Was it difficult breaking up?
Well, it was sad. I don't know if difficult is the right word. It was sad for everyone involved. Yeah.
I want to know, is there a right and a wrong? Is there good and evil?
If you're asking me, sure, absolutely.
And is there an objective morality?
I believe there is, although I believe that our access to it is sometimes more complicated than people think.
Define objective morality. What does that mean?
It's something that comes from God. It's something, therefore, certain things are right and certain things are wrong. But in my experience, when people argue about morality, they generally aren't arguing about right and wrong. They're generally arguing about two rights and two wrongs. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say you're arguing about whether to go to war.
Right.
It's not that one person makes an argument that, yeah, it's good to kill innocent people, and the other person makes an argument, no, it's bad to kill innocent people.
Right.
Generally, it's an argument of, well, we would go to war for this reason, this reason, and this reason, and therefore I think it's right. And the other person says, but we shouldn't for this reason, and this reason. And they both have viable reasons. It's two rights usually, but one favors one kind of right, one favors another. So let's say that someone decides that they want to steal bread for their starving family.
Right.
It's either right or wrong, but you can understand that either side that you argue it, you're arguing two different rights. And so objective morality, I think, is tougher than most people think it is, just like quoting the Bible to support your position is tougher than most people think, because the Bible's got a lot of verses.
And so if I say it's wrong to steal food to feed your family,
Right.
because you could just ask for it, and most likely you're going to get it, and you could say, well, it's right because the person was hungry or his family was hungry, so it is right. That's objective morality?
Well, no, I would say if the person could ask for it, obviously, we would all agree they should ask for it.
Right.
But if they didn't think they could, then you would have a much tougher argument.
I read that you were named the most influential rabbi in America by Newsweek Magazine. Is that true?
It is true.
And are you the most influential rabbi?
No.
You're not?
I think it's one of those things. It's like saying the smartest person or the most beautiful woman or the most popular person in high school. That year, those judges decided me. But I think you could easily name many other rabbis to be exactly the same. And also, influence is a tricky thing because it depends what influential means, in what way.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Are we as human beings, are we in a fallen state?
Judaism doesn't believe that, no.
And what does fallen state mean to you?
If you mean that we're sinners by birth, Judaism doesn't. In fact, every morning in our prayers, we say in Hebrew, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tahorahi. God, the soul you have given me is pure. So we believe that everybody has a good and an evil inclination in them. And sooner or later, everybody sins, probably every day. But we're not sinners by our very nature. Instead, by our nature, we're split, good and evil.
It does say we were born in sin, but what
Right.
it means is that we were born innocent, but we were born into bad families where husbands and wives are screwed up, or single mother parent home where the mother is out of control, and that kind of anger from the parent, confusion, caused the children to resent that pressure into their innocent nature. And as you know, the moment you become angry at your parents or anyone, you become like what you hate. So your nature changes due to that situation.
Well, I think it's certainly true that no person can be born into this world and not have pressures on them that distort and change the way they
Right.
originally are. Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's what it means to be born in sin.
If that's what it means, then yes. But it's not a condition of your soul. It's a condition of the world.
So do you believe that we could be born again, meaning overcome the evil of the sin that caused us to fall to sin?
Well,
and
the
then
way
become,
the way that Judaism puts it, and it may be the same thing that you're saying, but I'll use Judaism's terminology because I know it better, is repentance.
Right.
That repentance allows you, we just, right before the show you were saying we just went through the holiest day of the year.
Right.
That day is called Yom Kippur, and that's the Day of Atonement, where you cleanse your soul. We read the passage from Isaiah that says, though your sins be scarlet, they'll be white as snow, and we believe that we can begin again.
Do you sin?
Yeah, oh sure, who doesn't?
And what type of sins do you commit?
My most common sin?
Yeah.
Like most people I know, my most common sin are sins of speech.
Really?
Yeah.
Meaning what?
Meaning I'll gossip, I'll say something not nice, I won't say something nice.
Really?
Yeah,
And why do you do that being a rabbi?
because I'm human. I was a human being before I became a rabbi.
But you are representing a God
I am.
of all that doesn't do that.
Are you a preacher?
Yes.
Are you perfect?
I'm being perfect right now, meaning that I don't judge.
Yeah?
I live in the presence of my Father.
Yes,
so
but does that make you perfect? Do you never say anything
And
cruel about somebody or not say something nice that you could say?
Well, I tell the truth all the time.
That isn't what I asked you, though.
I don't say
So if
nice
you're gonna
things
tell
because niceness is a weakness. And most of the time when people are being nice, they're being weak and phony.
Really?
Yeah.
If I say that was a good question, am I being weak and phony?
If it wasn't a good question,
No,
you were.
but I'm saying you're telling the truth. Aren't there nice things that you could say to people that are true that you don't say? I mean, we all do this.
But
don't you ever pass along a tale or gossip or?
No.
Never?
No.
Good for you.
I want to ask you, all of my life, I grew up in Alabama. I grew up on a plantation in Alabama and all that good stuff. And we were taught that Judaism is the reason that we have Christianity. That if it wasn't for that, there would be no Christianity. And that we should love and respect Israel. My grandparents and my parents used to sing about it, pray for them and all that. There doesn't seem to be that unity between America and Israel today. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
And why isn't that?
I think part of it is because once you get something and it's established, you start to take it for granted. People do that with America, and they do that with Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who grew up when there wasn't an Israel or when Israel was new, they still felt the miraculousness of it.
Right.
People who come sometimes to America who struggle to get here, they feel the miraculousness of it. But we're already here. It's like I grew up, there wasn't Israel, there wasn't America, so it's easy to take it for granted and to tear it down for its flaws instead of seeing its majesty. And so I think that that's a big part of it, is that it's almost like if people could see anew what an astonishing thing it is to have a country like the United States of America, which for everybody, but I just want to speak as a Jew, you have to say this is a historical miracle, that this is a place where Jews can practice their religion freely and not, I mean, it's unprecedented in Jewish history. Any Jew who's not, as I said the other day from the pulpit, any Jew who's not a patriot is a fool or doesn't know their own history. And I think that there's something the same with Israel. Look, Israel has challenges. We know that.
Right.
It's in a very difficult neighborhood.
Yes.
So it's not perfect. So you can look at it and say, oh, well, look, it does this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, and therefore I dismiss it. Or you can say, considering all the historical circumstances, it's astonishing that there's an Israel.
Does Israel, or the people of Israel, cherish or like the relationship, or want the relationship that Christians want with them?
I think many do.
Oh, okay.
Generally, I think the same thing with American Jews, that most understand that there is this sort of special kinship between Christians and Jews.
Right.
There are some that are suspicious of why Christians are growing close to Jews, because they're very leery of the idea of being converted.
Oh.
And that makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Is this person coming close to me because they want me to accept Jesus? But I mean, as you say, we have a common historical root.
Yeah.
And so really, we should be close.
I noticed that with Barack Obama, for example, we seem not to be as close to Israel. Have you felt that?
There are some of his policies that I very much disagree with, and particularly, I was not a fan of the Iran deal.
No.
Am not a fan of the Iran deal.
Prior to Barack Obama, I think Israel felt pretty safe that it did have America on its side, but it doesn't feel that same safety.
Well, I don't know. It depends who you ask in Israel. Some say yes, some say no. They'll say that they got the largest aid package in Israel's history under Obama, just recently passed.
Wow.
So it depends who you ask. But
Did you vote for Obama?
don't ask me who I voted for. Do me a favor.
Why?
Because I have a congregation, and they're split, and I don't like to align myself one way or the other. I am registered independent. I have voted for Democrats and Republicans in my time.
You spoke at the Democratic convention.
I did.
You did. That was amazing to me that you would speak there.
Oh, well, let me say something about that. I've also spoken at the Republican Jewish Coalition, twice, in fact.
Well, that makes sense.
I said to them, any major political party, I didn't speak there, I offered a blessing. Any major political party that asks a rabbi for a blessing, of course I'm going to give them a blessing.
But that same year that you spoke there or blessed them, they didn't want God to be a part of the platform.
That's
They
all the
booed that
more
idea.
reason to offer a blessing and talk about God.
And
When someone comes to you and they said, Reverend, I don't believe in God, you say, oh, well, go away?
yeah,
No.
I said, go back to your father, the devil, then. No, I'm kidding.
No, you say to them, let me talk to you about it.
Yeah.
So I felt the same way. And I
Yeah.
thought, here's an opportunity. I didn't want to pass that up.
Did your church question or your synagogue
Yeah.
question why you spoke?
Sure.
prayed there?
And I told them. I said, look, any major political party that invites me, I go.
Oh, okay.
So when the Republicans invited me to the Jewish Coalition thing, I went. When the
Yeah.
Democrats invited me, I went. I'm a equal opportunity blesser.
Is it true that you perform so-called same-sex weddings?
I do indeed.
Really?
Proudly.
And so at the end of the ceremony, do you say to the congregation or the visitors, I present to you husband and wife?
No, husband and husband, or wife and wife.
And when you say that, it makes sense to you? It sounds correct?
Yeah.
You don't feel or sense there's anything wrong with this?
Let me tell you something. The last same-sex marriage I did with two men. In the middle of it, they said they wanted to say vows. I said, of course. One said vow. The other one said, I want to tell you when I decided to marry you. He said, maybe I shouldn't say it here, but I'm going to. He said, it was one night, you fell asleep as you always do, right away, and I looked at you and I began to cry because I realized I didn't want to exist in this world without you. So I woke you up and I said to you, promise me that I'll die before you because I can't stand being in this world without you. And you said, I promise, and went right back to sleep. By the time he was done, both the men and women in that congregation at that wedding were crying. It was one of the most beautiful expressions of love, not male on male love, not male on female love, just love I have ever seen.
But when I hear that coming from two men, that doesn't make me cry. It sounds
Okay.
just emotional
All right.
stuff that people make up in their fallen state.
Okay. You're welcome to think what you want. I'm not here to convince you otherwise.
Right.
But
And-
as far as I'm concerned, I've never been at a wedding that was more romantic than that one.
So, though you have accepted, even though you have accepted it, is it normal? You see it as a norm?
What do you mean by a norm?
Like
Tell me what that means.
heterosexual men and women together is a
Do
norm.
I see it equal?
As a norm. Men and women together is a norm.
It clearly is a norm in our
You don't question
society.
that at all,
It
right?
clearly is in
but
our
when you
society,
see two
yes.
men together
Yeah.
as man and woman, or two women as man and woman, you don't see it. There's
I see
nothing
it.
about you that says, all right, I'll go on and accept this, but there's something that just doesn't seem right.
Am I unused to it? Yes, I am. I am as unused to it as people used to be unused to race mixing, but they got used to it because they realized it was right.
Is it normal to race mix?
Yes,
It is?
sure.
And why is that normal?
Why not? Why isn't it normal? Because we're all human beings under the skin. The fact that we have slight epidermal differences, what does that mean about love?
What is love? You've said love mentioned love a couple of times here. What is love?
Nobody has ever taxed me with the definition of it. It's when you feel a physical, spiritual, and emotional, powerful kinship with another human being, and presumably want to, it depends. Male, female, male, romantic love, or female, romantic. Are you talking about romantic love?
Just love, period.
Well,
I'm asking,
but the
you
love,
mentioned
the love I have for my daughter is different from the love I would have for a woman.
What is love?
A physical, emotional, spiritual kinship with another person that transcends, I would say, to some extent, our normal human state.
When you first met your wife and married her, did you love her?
Absolutely.
And did that love fade away after a while?
No, I still love her.
But it wasn't strong enough.
It changed.
No,
it changed.
Was it an emotional love in a fallen state that comes and goes?
I understand that fallen state is something that you use as I don't know what that means by a fallen state. That's not a term that I would normally use.
A fallen away from God.
No, I don't think that God had anything to do.
I've noticed that love is not hating. When you don't have hate, you have love.
I don't hate this table, but I don't love it.
But you don't hate it, you do love it.
I don't.
Let me tell you why you love it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have hate, you don't have a feeling for it. If you had
then I don't love it.
If you had hate, you have a feeling for the table, right?
Right.
You would like, oh, it's so beautiful. Look at it, just so gold, civil. You'd be touching it, right? But because you don't hate it, you love it. And love is not a feeling. It's not a thought. It's nothing that you can taste and touch.
Where do you think it is?
It is a way of life. It's a way of living without judging a situation based on what you think about it.
I certainly agree with you that love is an enacted emotion. You have to act lovingly to truly love. Yes.
Well, you say what now? You have to.
What I mean is when a woman comes to me and she says, "My husband beats me up, but he loves me," I say, "No, he doesn't."
Right.
You've got to act lovingly to love.
Also, real love doesn't require you loving me at all.
Right.
It requires me loving you.
Yes.
Love my enemies.
So
all this other love that you talk about with these homosexuals and men and women who are breaking up once that love passed, that's ego love in the fallen state.
Why is it ego love? Why is it ego love?
Does not
why
last.
is it ego love when two men love each other?
Because,
what if they love each other their whole lives?
Because it's based on how they feel. It's an emotional love in a fallen state.
As
opposed to loving a person not based on anything.
How do you know that they don't love each other based on anything just as much as a man and a woman do?
Because men and women, when they first come together, even the love that draws them together is ego love.
Okay.
That's why it doesn't last. And so when that
but what about when it does last?
It doesn't. When that love fades away, most people abandon each other. But what they're supposed to do is stay together so they can develop the true love for one another.
Okay, so let's say that's true.
The love that carries you until death
Let's say that's
apart.
true. Why can't two men be that way?
Because it's not ordained by God that two men be that way.
Then why did God make them that way?
He did not make them that way. It happened due to a spiritual trauma.
Okay.
And that trauma,
at what age can you have a spiritual trauma?
You can have it at birth. You can also have it in the mother's womb if she's angry at the father or the husband of the baby, because when she's angry like that, she traumatized the kid. That spirit is passed on to the children.
My sense is...
And then they become like...
Okay, I want to tell you how I hear this, although it's very different from the way you do.
Right.
I understand you're translating your discomfort into their trauma.
And
what I'm saying to you is, you may be uncomfortable with same-sex marriage, but they don't feel traumatized. Instead, they feel like they're in love.
I'm totally not uncomfortable around it.
Really?
I counsel homosexuals all the time.
That has nothing to do with whether you're uncomfortable about it. You just asked me, aren't you normal? Don't you see it's unusual? What I was getting from you was that you feel not comfortable with it.
No, you're reading the wrong thing.
Okay.
Is there a norm and an abnorm?
In what?
Anything.
In some things, sure.
But not in...
It's less common, but that doesn't make it abnormal.
Racism.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that Black Americans are suffering due to racism or the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character?
My answer is yes.
Yes, what?
Both.
What is racism? How are they suffering due to racism?
I think that it is certainly harder in many neighborhoods in America to be a black person than it is to be a white person in all sorts of ways. If you asked almost anyone at birth, you're going to be born into America, you want to be successful, you want to be black or white? You tell me.
I want to be black.
Yeah, you think you have a better chance of being successful if you're black?
I'm doing quite well as a black man.
I'm not talking about you. I'm saying one. If you don't know what your circumstances are going to be, which do you think is a better predictor?
If I didn't know, I wouldn't be able to decide either way. Because I would, if I don't know what it's like to be in the white world.
I'm asking you to estimate the odds. Is there enough either overt or subtle racism to make it more difficult to be a black man, especially man, growing up in America than a white man? I think yes.
No.
Okay.
Why do you think it's difficult for the person to be born into the black race than it is the white race? What is causing the problem in the black community?
Well, I told you, I think both. I think both things are true. I think
Okay,
the breakdown of the family is a huge factor. No
So let me
question
ask
about
you
it.
this. If black men
Yes.
and black women
Yes.
were to love God with all their heart, soul, and might, along with nothing else, get married, and by example raise their children,
Right.
if they provided opportunities by creating businesses in their own communities,
And fathers
make
were
sure
present.
that the communities are safe, respect one another, treat others
Yes.
the way you would like to be treated, would they be having the same problem with the so-called racism?
They would still. I think there would still be that problem, but it would certainly be less, and the black community would be doing much better than it is now.
So is it possible that it has nothing to do with racism at all, but the
No,
destruction of the
it is
family?
not possible. And if you think it's possible, then you haven't spent enough time listening to white people talk about black people. Because if you did, you would hear that there are still racist undercurrents in part of the white community that actually make it difficult. In the same way, by the way, that if you talk to non-Jews, you hear something about the Jewish community. But the biggest difference is black people are much more immediately identifiable, and therefore racism has a trigger that is more instant than other kinds of prejudice.
I do want to tell you that I don't know what you have heard from white people, but white people do not hate black people. They are not discriminating based on color. White people are not the problem of black people at all.
Okay, those are two different statements. When
They
you
are
make a
not
blanket
racist against
when you
black-
make a blanket statement like white people don't discriminate against black
They are
people,
not
don't
racist
dislike-
against them.
Okay.
They may discriminate. Do you discriminate?
No,
You never discriminate.
I don't think so. Not consciously.
So you could be doing it, but not consciously?
Anyone could,
Yeah.
sure.
You don't think that all human beings discriminate?
If you mean by discrimination, make a judgment between two people, yes. If you mean by discrimination, prefer one race over another, no.
I grew up in Alabama under the Jim Crow laws.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't live in certain places like that.
Right.
But we had family. We were better off then than blacks are today when they can do and live wherever they want. Why weren't we worse off then under the Jim Crow laws than the blacks are
Because
today?
I'll tell you why.
Why do white people hold us back
I
then?
feel as though you keep trying to put me in a box of either this or that. And what I'm saying to you is
But you
it's-
just made a statement about white people that's not true.
Okay, what I'm saying is I don't think it's either this or that. I think it's both. First of all, the reason you grew up under Jim Crow laws is because there were white people who were racist. If you think it's all of a sudden disappeared in 50 years, then I think that you don't actually have a real grasp on how tenacious some of these beliefs and prejudices are. And the fact that the black family has suffered from many other things, which it clearly has, and I'm not disagreeing with you about that, doesn't mean that therefore there's no white racism in America.
It doesn't exist.
Okay. All right. Look, I mean, I didn't really come here to try to convince you that racism exists.
No, we're just
right, I'm saying if you don't believe it.
No, I know it doesn't.
Okay.
I know
How do
for
you
a
know?
fact.
How do you know?
Because
So if I hear if I hear a white person make a racist remark, what am I hearing?
you just
It's not
hear,
true?
First of all, it's not a racist remark. You hear an angry person. It's all based on what they're saying and why they're saying it. You hear an angry person making a comment about someone they don't like.
But what if they make it about a race?
They're still making it about someone they don't like.
But what if they're making it about a whole race?
It's still about people that they don't like. It has nothing to do with the
It's-
color.
look-
It has everything to do with the character of the person
When you
or
grew up in
people.
the Jim Crow laws, was there racism?
No.
So you don't think that when in Nazi Germany
As a
was there anti-Semitism?
Let me say this, and then I'll get to that. I want
Okay.
to.
I think
in
you're a little bit playing with words
No,
there,
no,
but
no. In
okay.
reality, our battle is a spiritual battle, a warfare between good and evil. It's either good or it's evil. It's either wrong or it's right. And so whenever you become angry, it causes you to look down on your fellow man. It causes you to blame them. It causes you to judge your fellow man. But if you don't have that anger, you would never do that. And you're able to see people for whom they are, and you deal with them accordingly. But the moment you become angry, you lose that sight of that.
Look, I think that this is a definitional difference. You can call it anger if you want.
And the
when
reason I want
when the anger manifests itself in hatred of a race, it's racism.
But there are not white people who hate a whole race of people. They hate what black people are doing. Most black people are brainwashed, dumbed down, angry, and they have been brainwashed to blame white people for their problems. So they are attacking white folks. There's a race war going on from black people toward white people because these people in their fallen state believe that white folks are their enemies, and they're not.
I don't think they're their
And
enemies
white people
either.
are getting fed up with
I
that.
don't think they're their enemies either.
Right. But in the
not as a general class, but if you ask me, does racism play any part in this society? I think the evidence is pretty clear, but we're not going to agree on this one either.
Are you racist?
I hope not.
Are you?
What?
Are you?
I just answered that question. I
No,
hope not.
But hope not mean that there's a possibility you might be.
Of course there's a possibility. There's a possibility that anybody discriminates unknowingly. They've done all these studies, I don't know if you're aware of them, where they will show people subliminally, so quickly that they can't see it, a white person and a black person, and see how they react. And white people and black people react differently to different races. So when you say, are you racist? For someone to say, no, I'm not at all.
I'm not.
Not at all.
Not at one iota.
Okay, I hope that you're right about you.
I know I'm right.
Okay, then God bless you.
Yeah.
Most people can't make that
but
statement.
there's a
not
possibility
honestly.
you could be a racist.
No, you didn't ask me if I was a racist.
You said you hope. I did. I asked you if
No,
racist.
no.
You said I
right.
hope not.
If there's any part of me that acts as a racist at any time, yeah, I hope there isn't. But is there Of course, there's a possibility. Just like even though you think it's not
Jewish
true.
rabbi, you can possibly be racist.
As a Jewish rabbi, there are times, I'm sure, when I am unwittingly taking into account, without knowing it, somebody's race, color, creed, religion, so on. Do I judge every human being entirely on who they are? I try. I hope I do. But can I say I do? No, that would make me perfect.
Are there Jewish people who are racist against white people?
I don't know. There may be. It's possible.
Are there white people who are racist against Jewish people?
If by racist you mean anti-Semitic, I would say, yeah, a lot of them.
So let me restate the question. Are there Jewish people who are racist against white people?
I said, I don't know. You did say that, and I answered, I don't know. There could very possibly be, sure.
And then I asked, are there white people who are racist against Jewish people? And you seem to be yes on that for sure.
Well, what I would say is this. The way I read the conversation here is you have a great deal of confidence in your lack of prejudice in the world, which I think is a beautiful thing, even though I a little bit distrust it. Because you see, I have a much more skeptical view of human nature than maybe you do. I don't think there's anybody without anger, hatreds, prejudice, unwarranted discriminations, and we all struggle with it. The day you think that worries me, because I think everybody should. Maybe you are that perfect person, but I haven't met another person that doesn't have some struggle with the way they deal with and think of other human beings.
Let me add, I did have that until God took my anger away.
Okay.
And he brought me out of that fallen state.
All right.
And now I'm able to see people for who they are, so I don't struggle with that.
Good.
I see what's driving them. I realize they can't help themselves. And so I don't take it personally. I pray for the person rather than struggle with anything.
See, all I can say is at least my tradition assumes every human being has a good inclination and an evil inclination. And
Well, there is good and
the
evil.
evil inclination can never be completely conquered, and everyone struggles with it all of their lives.
Oh, that's not true.
Well, I believe
I mean,
it's true.
it's
I
not
believe
true
it's
that you don't believe that.
Right, right. You're right.
It's true
Yeah.
that's not true that you can't overcome that.
Okay.
Where you can just live a
There
peaceful life.
we have a really basic division between the way we see human beings.
Ask me real fast a question about Hitler again. You said something about Hitler.
I said we're Nazis, anti-Semites.
From what I've read that they were, let me just ask you, were Nazi white people?
Yeah.
They were white people?
Yes.
And why were they mad at the Jews?
They saw them as both superhuman and subhuman at the same time.
So the white people, which was the Nazi people, saw the Jews as
taking up, as destroying the world, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
And were they taking the world away from the white people?
They were white people too.
Who?
Jews. They weren't dark-skinned. They were the same color as the people that were persecuting them.
Are you able to come on again at another time and talk to me about all that?
All right.
Will you be able to do that?
I hope so.
All right. I appreciate you coming on. Did you have fun?
I did.
Yeah, I did too. That was really, really nice talking to you.
Don't do me dirt, or you're gonna get hurt. Don't do it. And don't run away till you hear what I say. No, no. Don't do it. Keep your eye on the sparrow. Next time on The Fallen State.
What did it feel like at that age knowing that your father hated you?
That's a little too much. He didn't hate me, he was just hostile toward me. He's your father, so you also breathe it in. So now you're rebelling against yourself at some level, and you never know whether you're doing something because it's authentically you. And that really caused a lot of problems in my life and a lot of self-hatred and a lot of depression.